Imagine now, someone has been convicted for murder. He received 24 years in jail. What was the evidence? The evidence was an eyewitness account. An eyewitness who later admitted that she lied. So based upon that, there is no case. Even if a conviction had occurred, if later was proven that the eyewitness upon which the case was built had lied, she even admitted herself. And not only that, even the forensic evidence at the crime scene contradict the report of that so-called eyewitness who admitted later she lied. That means that the guy has to be released from jail. Plain and simple, right? But what if I told you that at the time that there was a police investigation, there were over 30 eyewitnesses, people that didn't know each other, people who were at a party, some people were just passing by. 30 separate eyewitness accounts that were consistent with one another, and those reports of those eyewitnesses were in line with the forensic evidence. And those eyewitnesses noticed that there were two men running away after shots were fired, and one individual saw two men with long hair committing the crime. This is all proven. The forensics is documented, but still, the guy is in jail. 3 times an appeal was sent to the High Court to revisit the case. The evidence was presented, but the judges of the High Court didn't see any new evidence. If this happens, what can you conclude? That it's a cover-up, that there's something going on. And with this, you shatter the trust of the population in the legal system. It's a disgrace. It's what they would call a miscarriage of justice. But the case I've just spoken about is a real case. They've even made a documentary about it. And it's not somewhere in Latin America or in China or some underdeveloped country in Africa. No, it happened on Curacao, which is where I'm born. It's a Caribbean island that belongs to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which is part of the West. So in a Western country, in the Dutch Kingdom, such things happen. It's a disgrace. And even the people that took part of the documentary were shocked. And one of them even said he was a lawyer, an experienced lawyer for years. And he said that he does not want to be part of a world that operates like this. Now, I know it's TV, okay? I know TV is biased. Nevertheless, that case is a disgrace. They should be even ashamed that this has occurred, and now it has become public, and they were aware it would become public because TV was involved for many months. Let me tell you, miscarriages of justice are common in the world. And not only when it comes to imprisonment. Also in daily life, miscarriages of justice are common. People just remain quiet about it. Okay, enough about that case. Let's give another example. This one is a fictive one, but just hear me out. You have a man that is emotionally immature and he beats his wife often. The wife often denies that it happened, or people could see her with scars. And people could see that she's quite fearful in her behavior. So one day people called the police. And the police came by and the wife denied, because she was terrified of that man. So people kept calling the cops, and one day the guy was arrested. And he was sentenced to 15 years in jail for what he did. And people clap their hands. Now let's look at it differently. Let's say now you have a man and his wife, or the woman he's with, and there is a child over there, and the parents, or step-parents in this case, they are out of hand, and they act out devastations upon the children. The children need to behave. The children need to behave so that they are relieved. So the children are there to relieve them. And people can see in the community that the children look a bit shocked, that the children don't operate normally like other children. But people ignore it. People talk about it, but they let it happen. Those children grow up, they malfunction because there's no other way. And now people begin to blame them. They say we have to behave, blah, blah, blah. People begin to accuse them. They couldn't behave otherwise because they were stressed out as children, so they have to malfunction. There's no other way. But the community around tells them you need to behave, you need to be respectful. The community is retarded. Instead of going off at the children, go off at those parents, and they should go off at themselves for permitting it to happen. But just like that miscarriage of justice of that man that obviously did not commit that crime in Curacao, he wasn't even there near the crime scene when it happened. He's still in jail. He still needs to serve 14 years in prison for something that is proven, even on national TV, that he didn't commit the crime. That same type of miscarriage of justice, this same type of disgrace is happening every day. And that parable I gave on to you about those children and that community, it happens often. And people often defend those adults who are so-called parents to relieve them, those adults, because people don't want adults that are out of hand, so they want things to remain at peace. So, to preserve the relief of the community, they sacrifice the well-being of those children, or in this case, the life of that man who has been in jail for over 10 years for something he did not commit. Let me tell you, miscarriage of justice is common. And why do I repeat this? It's because a lot of folks have expectations that don't add up. This world you're in, it operates in the negative. Worldly people are relief-centered. They'll either deny their contribution to the negative around them, or they will acknowledge it, or they will blame someone else or some group for it, so that they don't have to take accountability for their contribution to the collective. Worldly people are relief-centered. They will things, and you just have to find a way to deal with their will. How did the people of God in the Old Testament and in the New deal with it? Look at Moses versus Pharaoh. What happened over there? Pharaoh eventually cooperated at his own expense. And, well, when he tried to finish the job later on, he and his army drowned. Look at Jezebel and Ahab. Well, you know how it ended up with them. When the Apostle Peter was imprisoned by King Herod Antipas, it is not the same Herod as during the trials of Jesus. This is not the same Herod as during the time when Jesus was just a little baby. Those are two different Herods. Now this third Herod here, Herodes Antipas, he was king by permission of the Romans in that region when the apostles were spreading the gospel in the Roman Empire. Herodes Antipas had killed James with a sword. Well, the soldiers did, on the command of Herod. And Herod imprisoned Peter to kill him the next day. The believers, when they heard that Peter had been imprisoned, they began to pray. They began to pray fervently. And what happened? You know, an angelic being came and got Peter out of jail. He just walked off. And the next day, the soldiers were killed under the command of Herod because Peter escaped. And it was impossible for Peter to escape from a human point of view because he was chained and there were so many soldiers around. Another time, Paul and Silas were thrown in jail in the most secured part of the prison where the most dangerous criminals were. They just began to praise the Most High. They didn't try to fix the situation. They were not stressed. They just began to praise. And what happened? an earthquake manifested, and from the foundations, the prison collapsed. Now, it didn't fall on all people so that people died, but the prison collapsed in the sense that the doors went open. And all the prisoners now escaped, not all. And Paul and Silas, well, they could escape too, but they comforted the prison warden who was about to commit suicide because he knew when the Roman authorities found out that the prisoners had escaped, he would die. So they shared the gospel with him. You can read the story for yourself. When people decide to will whatever they will, don't come with your will to fight their will. No. Go to the Word. Agree with Christ. Anytime the people of God, whether in the Old or New Testament, were faced with a collective stronghold that was energized by worldly people, because worldly people had their will, they agreed with God's will, and that stronghold was shattered, dissolved, consequences happened. Maybe not immediately, but it happened. So when I saw that on TV, I went into the spiritual offensive for that young man in that jail. Because I said, this shouldn't happen. And people were upset because the High Court of Curacao, well, High Court, the highest legal office there, they didn't want to revisit the case. You know what I thought? Okay, they made their will. Now they have to deal with my will, because I'm in agreement with Christ. I follow God's will. So now they have to deal with my will. I prayed. I decreed consequences. So I don't know how things are working out, but things are working out now. That's how you walk by faith. What they do at Manitos churches, seeking relief, that's not God's will. Look, I said it before. The reason I can keep making these videos, even in public, and nobody assaults me, nobody attacks me, and the reason why no police officer harasses me, the reason why the state here doesn't dare to take actions against me, is because they know if they will something and they can't defend it, they, as an organization, and all those people involved are in big trouble. They know that. That's why they keep their hands off of me. That's why they walk away when they see me and they can't stand my presence. I don't acknowledge their so-called free will. They can will whatever they will and you just have to deal with it. No. No, no, no. I make this video for you to inspire you to walk by faith. So agree with Christ. If there is if there's a drug cartel in your neighborhood, let's say you're in Colombia and there's this drug cartel that's terrorizing people and people just take whatever the people in the drug cartel will, go in a spiritual offensive. Or if you are a group of believers, do it. And you will see that drug cartel will dissolve. Those people will turn on each other, or things will go wrong. Anyway, things are going to happen. But there's the thing. Worldly people are relief-centered. They only care about their own relief. There are exceptions among worldly people that do have a genuine interest in the well-being of others. It exists, okay? But worldly people, in general, most of the time, they are relief-centered, and their relief is the only thing that's on their mind. So when you begin to walk by faith and target those strongholds, they'll turn on you. What happened to Christ at the lake of Gadara? That man with that legion of demons, he delivered the man. And what happened as a consequence? We know about the swine, they drowned all. What happened was Christ dealt with the strongholds. That man was possessed by a stronghold of demons, and the man couldn't help himself. He couldn't. That man was not evil, but evil took a hold of him. The community relieved themselves by pushing him to the graveyard, so that they are relieved. And they used their collective agreement against the men to relieve themselves from their own inner conflict. Christ came, Christ dealt with the stronghold. What happened? The community became terrified because their relief was disturbed. And they took it out on Christ. They begged him to leave them alone, to depart from them. So after a while, Christ said, okay, I'm leaving. The man who was just delivered from a stronghold of demons, he wanted to go too. He was realistic. You know what Christ said? You remain here to tell your relatives what the Most High has done for you. The man did it, and afterwards the man moved on. So when the Most High wants you in an intoxicated environment, it is because he has his plan for you over there, and it's only temporarily. So if you are in a contentious environment now, and you just can't get out of it, worship the Most High where you are by agreeing with Christ. Agree with Christ, operate by faith, be on the spiritual offensive every day, and where you are, the glory of God manifests. That's God's will. Too often, we just want to be relieved. Look, if an environment is intoxicated with negativity, you're there anyway, so agree with Christ, be on the spiritual offensive, be delivered from the environment. Because once you are delivered from that environment, while you're still in the environment, you now can walk away relieved. Truly relieved. Because you are delivered. But don't run away from the environment to get relief, like most worldly people do. There are believers still doing that. It either happens that the whole contentious environment is broken down and dissolved because you walk by faith, or it happens that in the midst of that contentious circumstance you are at peace and people are shocked because of it. Think about the 3 Hebrew young men that were put in a burning furnace. Well, it was really a public furnace, but they were put in it. They should have burned and died, but they were walking around freely in the fire. They were bound and thrown in, but they were walking around freely. And it terrified people. And those that lit the fire of the furnace themselves were devoured. That can happen also. Or like with the lion's den, that there is all this contention around you, or maybe even target against you, but yet you are walking around freely because the lions can't open their mouths. That can happen. Or it happens that, just like that man that was delivered from that demonic stronghold, that you are delivered and you walk around freely in that contentious environment, and soon you're out of that contentious environment, often without you even being aware of it. Anyway, walk by faith. That's my message for you now. It's morning here. I just took a shower, took breakfast, put my clothes on to do what I have to do now, but I wanted to make this video for you first. So, agree with Christ and pull those strongholds down, burn those dark clouds down, burn them down. In the name of the Messiah, be at peace.